Welcome to Ossip Klarwein, an architect's journey from Berlin to Jerusalem. We'll find out more about the avant-garde architect of many iconic buildings who had a decisive influence on the architecture of the young state of Israel, but whose work is not widely known today. I'm Rachel Stern, Executive Director of the Fritz Ascher Society for Persecuted, Ostracized, and Banned Art based in New York. I'm now honored to introduce today's speaker, Jacqueline Hénard, who was born in West Berlin during the Cold War, studied in Montpellier, Cambridge, and Paris, and graduated from the Sorbonne with a thesis in contemporary history and international relations. Following a year as a volunteer with an NGO in rural Indonesia, she joined the editorial staff of the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. She was appointed the FAZ's Eastern Europe correspondent in 1987, during which time she also covered the transformation of the former East Germany. In 1997, Jacqueline moved to Paris, where she worked first as a correspondent for Die Zeit and later ran the European program of the public radio France Culture. In parallel, she continued to pursue her academic interests, teaching at Sciences Po Paris, doing research, and publishing a number of books on European history and culture in French and German. In 2022, Jacqueline started research about the largely forgotten architect Ossip Klarwein, which led to the book publication and the exhibition currently on view in Berlin. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much for inviting me to the Fritz Ascher Society to present the exhibition and most of all the person Ossip Klarwein. I hope you can see my presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the presentation, very good. I would like to walk you through the project in 5 steps. The first is the origin of the Klarwein project. The second, Klarwein's life and work, his many iconic buildings. 3, the exhibition concept. Then I would like to present the accompanying projects and speak about what remains and what next. The origin of the Klarwein project is quite extravagant. It's a pure coincidence. A couple of years ago, I moved to Berlin, close to the building that you can see here, which is a landmark church known to be a masterpiece of German brick expressionism by Fritz Höger, a Hamburg architect. Actually, this building was I didn't move next to this church because I found it rather depressing. Over time, I found it more and more interesting. And the inside, which you can see in the middle, the inside is very interesting because it contrasts with the outside that is very heavy. And inside you have these arches. And it is also, it hosts concerts regularly. And so during one of the concerts in summer 2022, I discovered that a certain Ossip Klarwein had been involved in building the church. Nobody really knew how and why and what his role was. The parish was aware since the early 2000s that Ossip Klarwein had a place in the building and the designing of the church, but not exactly what. I started asking questions and everybody thought it was quite interesting. And why don't we do a concert in honor of Ossip Klarwein, and why don't we do a little exhibition? So this exhibition, there is no will, no political, organizational will behind this exhibition. There is no particular reason, there is no anniversary, neither of the church building nor of Ossip Klarwein. And in the beginning, we had absolutely no money. And I soon realized that very little information was actually available on Ossip Klarwein. There were three partly contradictory Wikipedia pages. There were two articles in encyclopedias, and that was more or less it. So I started tracing Ossip Klarwein, and I very soon discovered that there were 2.5 meters of documents in the Central Zionist Archives, which is far away from Berlin. And I also discovered that the professional estate of Fritz Höger, who had been the employer actually of Ossip Klarwein, had been largely destroyed, but there were remains both in Berlin and in Hamburg. And I started traveling first to Hamburg, where in the top you can see it, I found the compensation files of Ossip Klarwein, who here is called Joseph. That obviously, apparently nobody had ever looked into because the elements contained in the files had not yet been published. Then I I met the family. I identified one family member. Ossip Klarwein had had one son who was long dead, but this son had had not only one daughter whose name was known because she had been a famous French actress, but 4 children who were living in France and in Spain. And as I discovered later on, there were, so these are the 4 grandchildren of Ossip Klarwein, and there are 2 more step-grandchildren via Ossip Klarwein's second wife. The families were all the family members were extremely open and very hospitable and very generous and quite happy that somebody should be interested in their grandfather. So I started the research in sorted and unsorted boxes in public archives like the Zionist Archives or the Hamburg State Archives or the Berlin Art Archives, but also family photo albums, diaries, and I found countless unread files. Sometimes the research was quite idyllic, as you can see on the top right. The family, one of the grandchildren, invited me to her house, and I could go through all the boxes. I think there were 8 big movers boxes that I read with her at her house. Luckily, over time, a team and many partners came together, and I was no longer alone. The Aktives Museum, which is more of a history platform in Berlin, accepted to be our institutional partner. I am a historian by training, but not an architect, so I was very lucky to find Johannes Kramer and Sigal Davidi, who are German and Israeli architectural historians, respectively. We had exhibition designers, all sorts of layouters. In the middle, these very tightly printed pages, you can see the acknowledgements in the catalog. And when I was writing them, I realized how many people had been involved, which was quite surprising. And obviously also we started raising money. I can say that this is a purely privately financed project, only private foundations. And I'm very grateful to them to start this adventure with us and to also go through it. Now I would like to present Klarwein's life and work in 2 sections. The first is his early years until 1933. The second, his later years in Palestine and Israel. Ossip Klarwein was actually born in Warsaw. He emigrated to Germany with his family in 1905. He started art school. He passed an art school diploma, probably the only diploma he ever passed. He applied for military service in World War I in Germany, hoping to become a German. It happened to be that he was a Russian citizen, which was a bit touchy. He did not get naturalized. But in turn, and only thanks to one of his former employers, he was liberated. He did reconstruction work in Eastern Prussia. He continued university studies from 21 to 26. We don't really know what he did. And in 1926 or 27, the documents are contradictory. He became chief architect with Fritz Höger in Hamburg, where he stayed until 1933. And I think you can already see why I called this section A Wanderer Between Worlds. Here you can see some pictures from Klarwein's childhood and formative years. On the top left, you can see the street that his father, a businessman, had his macaroni factory in. In the middle, you can see the Klarwein family, the father in the middle, Ossip Klarwein to the left, a young man, very formally dressed, but modern dresses as compared to the mother, the stepmother actually, and his sister and stepsister. To me, there's no indication that the family was a religious Jewish family. To me, it looks rather secular. You can see that on this picture, you can see two girls that are Klarwein sisters. Research later indicates that he had two more siblings who were probably older, but we never found their graves or anything more than their names and the fact that the older brother left the Jewish religion. Below this picture, you can see Klarwein's first diploma from the art school in Mainz. He had an incredible amount of diplomas in his archives and very many first prizes in competitions, which was something that he continued all through his life. On the top right, you can see his immatriculation card with the famous German architect Theodor Fischer at the Munich Technical University, Technical High School. Here on this card, you can see that his first name is written Josef with an F. Below, you have his immatriculation from later time when he was a master's student with the famous, even more famous architect Hans Pölzig. And here his name is spelled Ossip Klarwein. Klarwein kept changing his first names. The family always called him Ossip. He signed Ossip, Joseph with an F, Joseph with a PH, and we opted for Ossip as the name that is printed on the catalog and that gives it and in the exhibition. Klarwein came to Berlin in 1921 to study with Hans Pölzig. He had an apartment in Berlin from 1921 on, and at some point in time, he met a Protestant opera singer called Martha Elsa Kumme, whom he married in June 1924. In April 1924, he had left the Jewish religion. We have the card that attests that he left the Jewish religion, but no kind of proof what kind of religion he took later on. There are documents indicating that he became Catholic, like probably his older brother too, and his younger sister. For her, we have documents that prove that she converted to Catholicism. Ossip and Martha Elsa Kumme had one son after 8 years, Matthias or Matti, who became a world-famous painter. In the middle, again, you see the son, the wife, and the sister Bronislava. Apparently, Klarwein and his younger half-sister Bronislava were very close. She is in many family pictures. And the bottom picture is, again, Ossip Klarwein. You can see he's a very elegant man. And this is a photograph from 1932. His professional breakthrough took place a couple of years earlier when he joined Fritz Höger's office in Hamburg. Fritz Höger was a world famous brick expressionist. The picture that you can see in color, the Chile house, was built in the years 1922 to 1924. It is part of the UNESCO World Heritage. It is everybody in Hamburg knows this building. It is quite an audacious structure. It looks like a ship. And contrary to what you can see on this image, it is not very colorful, but in dark brick. So it is a bit menacing as a building. On the right-hand side, you can see a design by Klarwein. It is signed by Klarwein on the bottom right. It is a project design for the office building of a famous jeweler in Hamburg called Wempe. You can see that Klarwein's designs also were quite daring. On the bottom left, there are more drawings by Klarwein, also from his time with Fritz Höger, that are kept in the Central Zionist archives. Now we will turn to what Ossip Klarwein actually did in Fritz Höger's office. Ossip Klarwein was both chief architect and class clown, it seems. On the top photo, this is a photo from 1930, you can see Ossip Klarwein with the red circle sitting next to Fritz Höger. Klarwein was the chief architect the chief design architect. And the Höger office counted round about 20 people at this time, which was the most glorious time for Fritz Höger. Ossip Klarwein was also a very free spirit. He was lots of fun. All his colleagues liked him. I have spoken to children of already over 80 children of Klarwein's former colleagues. And they remembered that their parents always said that it was great to spend time with Ossip Klarwein because he was always fun and always good humored. And you can see him on the below making fun, having fun with his colleagues at an office outing. And even in the more formal setting where everybody wearing their office uniform, sort of, you can see that he is pulling faces. The people don't look very serious. And he would even dress up as Fritz Höger. Fritz Höger was 16 years older than Ossip Klarwein. He had a carpenter's diploma. He had studied architecture, and he was a master in carpentry, which is a title that it's a very esteemed title, and at the time it was not necessary for architects to have a diploma in architecture, like later on, in order to exercise the profession. What did Höger design in Ossip Klarwein, design in Fritz Höger's office? Here are some examples of projects with Höger. On the left, you will see the town hall in Wilhelmshaven, Rüstringen, which is a very famous building called the Castle on the Sea. It is very imposing. In the middle, you can see a Klarwein drawing, and you can see the resemblance between his design drawing, his sketch, and the building that later on was built and that is still there, and that regularly architectural enthusiasts go and visit and make excursions to. On the right, you see the state high school in Hamburg, Lyceum Eppendorf. Again, you always have the same material, this very dark brick that was typical of the Höger buildings at this time. There are also other projects that we have discovered, but not necessarily identified. These drawings are from the Central Zionist Archives. And again, you can see the same style, very massive cubes connected to each other, rather heavy, imposing buildings. It seems that these are office buildings rather than churches or private houses, but we do not yet know where they are and whether they were ever realized. One quite remarkable fact is that Klarwein designed very many Protestant churches in Fritz Höger's office. In the office, although Klarwein had left the Jewish religion, his colleagues called him the Jew, not necessarily in a depreciating manner, but like they would have called him the American. This is what one of the son of one of the Höger employees told me. The fact that Klarwein designed so many Protestant churches was at the origin of a denunciation. In June 1933, somebody, an anonymous person, wrote to the Reichskulturkammer. Rachel, how do you translate the Reichskulturkammer? The Nazi Institution for Culture, saying that it is inadmissible that a Jew, the Jew that has been baptized a Catholic, is in charge of designing Protestant churches in the office of Fritz Höger. Klarwein's last project in Germany is a church, this church on Hohenzollernplatz that I happen to live next to. We have found many designs, many drawings, sketches by Klarwein that show also the evolution between the first ideas for this church and what was built in the end. There were negotiations with, obviously, with the parish that had ordered this building, commissioned this building, and some shapes had to be adapted according to their taste. The church was inaugurated in January 1933. In March, on the 19th of March, 1933. So after the Nazi takeover of power, and Klarwein could not assist the opening of this building that clearly he had designed. He complains about this. He notes it bitterly in an interview in 1966 with an Israeli journalist that all Israelis seem to know, Sylvie Cachet in Haaretz. What happened in 1933? Ossip Klarwein's employer, Fritz Höger, had joined the National Socialist Party. He was hoping to become a sort of state architect. And the working relationship between Fritz Höger and Ossip Klarwein ended on the 31st of December 1932, 1st of January 1933. Unofficially, Klarwein continued working for Höger, who wrote a panegyric, a lyrical letter of recommendation at the end of November 1933. Their relationship remained quite friendly Klarwein sending Christmas cards to Höger, thanking Höger for his wonderful letters. And in 1954, writing in an affidavit that he had to resign from Höger's office because Höger had been under terrible pressure because he was employing a Jewish architect. There's a lot of discussion about how did Höger fire Klarwein, or did Klarwein hand in his resignation? It seems that Klarwein handed in his resignation. In 1933, Ossip Klarwein moved from Hamburg to Haifa. On the 11th of November, he deregistered with the Hamburg police, and he was reunited with his family. On the right-hand side, you can see happy Ossip Klarwein with his father, Menachem, and his son, Matthias, in Haifa. Here we get to the second half of Ossip Joseph Klarwein's life, emigration and different phases. I will walk you through the different phases in a minute. This is one of the first pictures that we have from Ossip Klarwein in Haifa, and you can see photographs from buildings that he built in Germany. What did he do? What were the buildings that he built in Mandatory Palestine? Quite a few really famous buildings. Right from the start, Ossip Klarwein found jobs in competitions. He was working for other architects who had already arrived earlier, like Richard Kaufmann, Oskar Kaufmann. You can see the different buildings that he was either wholly responsible for, or that he participated in. Beit Hakranot, the office building and commercial center in Haifa, is a Klarwein building. He won the competition. On the right-hand side, you can see another building with this funny round structure that resembles the Beit Hakranot office building. And this actually is a sketch for the Habima Theater in Tel Aviv. In Klarwein's professional estate, there are many sketches and also photographs of models that seem to indicate that he participated in the Habima Theater project in Oskar Kaufmann's office. You can see his first official portrait in his Haifa office from 1934, a man who's ready for a fresh start. And you can also see on the right-hand side, the so-called Ettlinger Castle in Naharia. Klarwein participated in the development of this Jeckes seaside resort. And why was this called a castle? Because at the time, people built much more modest houses, and this seemed to be already quite an impressive building. Following the positive start, Klarwein was up for difficult times. In 1939, he had no employment. He was out of money. He had to sell the grand piano, his wife's grand piano. He had applied for naturalization in, at the time it was Palestinian citizenship in Mandatory Palestine. And here you can see the document attesting that Klarwein obtained this citizenship on the 1st of September 1939. This is to say on the day of the outbreak of the Second World War. Klarwein continued looking for work. He did not find any work as independent architect, so nolens volens, he applied with the Public Works Department, where he became temporary assistant architect, which is a terribly humiliating step downwards in the career from chief architect with world famous Fritz Höger. On the left-hand side, you can see Klarwein here, the second from the left, together with colleagues who were this is a later part of Klarwein's work for the Public Works Department. He was responsible also for designing some of the Tegard fortresses, police stations built by the British in order to try to control their territory. Soon after 1945, or already before 1945, Klarwein started looking for new contracts, and he found new perspectives. There are drawings of buildings like this hotel in his estate that show that he was actively looking for new projects. He also won competitions. Klarwein was passionate about competitions, being the really only fair way of becoming a commission. Here you can see him with the model of the facade of a building that was supposed, the biology building on the Mount Scopus Hebrew University camp compound. It was only partly built and later on destroyed. But you can see very happy Klarwein during the presentation of his model. He was also appointed professor to the Hebrew Technical Institute in Haifa, professor for building construction. And he continued to work in Nahariya, building, amongst others, the Olympic-size swimming pool. From the moment of that the State of Israel came into being, Klarwein was involved in very many major projects. He was involved in the planning of the government area, in the planning of Hebrew University, in the master plan, and he also built individual buildings, both in the government compound, 3 ministry buildings, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Interior, the Prime Minister's building, and he built the law building, or the Ross building, in the Hebrew University compound in Givat. He, in the early 50s, started working for Reuben Hecht, for whom he designed the Dagon silos. This is the first phase of construction. All of you who've been to Haifa, you know this building, this enormous building that in earlier times used to block the view practically of the sea. Klarwein also built the first central train station in Tel Aviv, and here you can see a quote in a 1954 letter that to friends in Germany that I found in his in family archives. He says, "I'm extremely busy. I'm working on major projects: the university in Jerusalem, the central train station, the bus terminal in Jerusalem. It was destroyed. Buildings for the health fund and the labor union, that is Lishkat Hamas buildings on Ben Yehuda Street. Some of you may know it. A national memorial with park, that is Mount Herzl. And all of it almost entirely without assistance. One must work hard here, but the work brings a quiet kind of happiness." So the biggest success that Klarwein managed to that he encountered with his work was the winning the competition for the Knesset, the first parliamentary building in Israel. The competition, the decision of the competition was unanimously in favor of Klarwein. The second on the left here, you can see Klarwein. I don't like to use this photo because he looks so sad. This was when he presented his model and when he had just won the competition. It was a very important project, not only for Israel, but also for him. On the left-hand side, you can see a letter from his son who writes, "Dear leading architect, congratulations. I am happy you made it and glad to hear that the cornerstone will be laid in July. You have reached the supreme ambition of your life, the plans for the first Israel Parliament building. So, and his son says, I think you should give up everything else and concentrate only on this and really make a masterpiece of beauty and function out of it, so that it will be another Parthenon in 4,000 years from now. So here there are, later on, the project encountered opposition from younger architects, from architects who had not participated in the competition. And there was a long negotiation with different commissions. Klarwein had to go abroad to look at, inspect the parliamentary buildings and public buildings in other countries in order to have comparisons. And after this trip that had been decided, there were international colleagues who had been called upon by commissions, and the plans were adapted. There were different phases of adaptation, and finally in 1966 the Knesset was inaugurated as you see it here. Klarwein had made his peace with many parts of the alterations, not with the inside. Dora Gad, who is a famous interior designer, I think he hated Dora Gad, and there are very clear remarks also in public interviews that he did not. He found the interior decoration of the Knesset absolutely awful. The Knesset was one big success, and it was a building for Israel. One question that is open to me is what was Klarwein's ideological stance on Israel and on Zionism? It is said that his father was a Zionist. There's absolutely no proof for this. It is said in many Wikipedia pages. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. He published his ads for his company in the Zionist press in Warsaw, but what does that prove? Klarwein, very early on, from 1934 on, he came to Israel, to Palestine in 1933. From 1934 on, he was commissioned graves for the most prominent Zionists: Chaim Arlazorov, Saul Chernichovsky, Meir Dizengoff, Max Nordau, and of course the Mount Herzl. So he must have had a great proximity with the Zionist movements, or his very modest designs, they liked them, and they had the feeling that this was something that corresponded the young state of Israel. In the Knesset, on the contrary, there is one letter in his, not letter, it's notes, in his personal notes. He said he was not in favor of the fact that an image, a sculpture or a painting or whatever of Theodor Herzl should be shown in the parliament. And he says in this mix of German and English that is proper to his notes, a building which is built here as Knesset must not be a bearer for Zionism. We do not feel as Zionists here. We are Israelis. This is the symbol we need as Israelis and not as Zionists. Klarwein was proud that he was never member of any party, of any trade union, and never politically engaged. And what were his convictions? I think that further research may show. Here, this is a map from our catalog that indicates the many, very many projects, buildings and projects that Klarwein was involved in. practically all major projects in Jerusalem in building the new capital. Klarwein was involved in one way or another. The Hebrew University, the government compound, the Mount Herzl in its different phases, the gravesite for Gershon Agron, the Hadassah Medical Center, the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, the Beit Schocken Reuben Academy of Music. It was originally a building by Eric Mendelssohn, but Klarwein adapted it. Urban renewal for East Jerusalem, Nachalat Shiva, office buildings, Beit Yoel, the Ali Seligsberg School, Jaffa Gate, again, Hebrew University on Mount Scopus master plan. So it is really impressive to see all the scope of his work. Klarwein was not only a working man, although he was very passionate about his work. He was also a father, a husband, and a friend. On the top, you can see him with his son Matti, already in Israel, rather formally dressed, below at the beach in Naharia. His first marriage broke during the war times. His wife and his son left for Paris in 1948. And Klarwein remarried another Elsa here below. And it seems that they went to they had their honeymoon trip to Venice. He was also a very esteemed friend. This little poem here is a poem for his 70th birthday, where one of his colleagues says, your judgment was always so certain. You could see the weaknesses in all architectural projects, and you were always a wonderful person to work with. Whatever you took up, it was first class. And what I really appreciated most about you was your friendliness with all, your humor that made things a lot easier for all of us. So a nice friend, apparently. Here we come to the exhibition concept and its elements. I will run you quickly through this. The exhibition is in a church building, which creates a special context, special volumes with seated rows in the middle. The exhibition is divided in several stations. We have an entrance space, we have the side walls, we have photographic portraits of Klarwein's buildings today by a visual artist, Eli Singalowski. We have the reproduction of Klarwein's original design for the Knesset building that we are particularly proud of. And we have a film station presenting both the evolution of the church on Hohenzollernplatz and 5 short videos from students of the Tel Aviv University that were made express for the exhibition. This is what the building looks like. I'm going to go through this rather fast. This is the exhibition space, so you can see the rows of seats in the building, which create a special context for the exhibition. It's not, although it regularly houses exhibitions, it is also at the same time a concert hall and a church that holds regular church services. The entrance space, we have a hanging structure that has these long papers, like the drawing paper that architects used to live in. It is divided into 2 parts. On one side, you find the Klarwein and his life until 1933. And the second part is his biography as of 1933 in Palestine and Israel. The side walls, people walk. We have very many visitors in the exhibition. It's really amazing. All the time, as soon as the church opens, you have people standing there and waiting to come in. There are 6 chapters. the church on Hohenzollern Square in itself, housing projects, office buildings, state architecture, the Dagon silos, school and architecture buildings, and university buildings, excuse me. Then here, the reconstruction of Klarwein's original model, original project for the Knesset, and in a scale of 1 to 250, so it's larger than the original model, but it's in the details, it corresponds to what Klarwein wanted, and it stands in the exhibition so that you can see both the photos from the inauguration of the Knesset in 1966 and of the building in its present state. We have the photographic portraits of Klarwein's work in their present state by Elie Singalowski, who made these photos for the exhibition in 1924 and 1924-5, and we're extremely grateful to him. We have the film station, which is a fantastic project. Students got involved, 24 students of architecture and film of the Tel Aviv University. And it also there, you always have public watching the films. It's on 6 topics, key buildings by Klarwein. And we have a series of accompanying projects. We have an information sculpture outside that attracts the attention to the building and also to the architect involved. We have the catalog that is very important. It's a German, we have a German and an English edition, but it is a German-Israeli cooperation. You can see the different chapters and the authors on this slide. I think that Rachel will circulate a link to the presentation. You can watch it more in a more relaxed way. We had a memorial plaque installed on Klarwein's many-year residence in Berlin, and we also managed to retrace the life of his esteemed sister Bronislava, who died in Auschwitz in 1944, who could not leave Berlin, his forgotten half-sister. And the Stolperstein ceremony was a very moving moment in the on the opening day. And in this way, with the info sculpture, with the memorial plaque and the Stolperstein, Klarwein and his family are now inscribed. They remain in the public space in Berlin. And I'm particularly proud that Bronislava Klarwein's biography, we prepared a brochure, is now used. Here I got this picture today, only today, in the history class in a Riedberg school in somewhere, a small town in Germany. What remains of the Klarwein project? The website. We have a very rich website that I invite you to have a look at. We have a YouTube channel with the films. We have an Instagram account. And what next? The finissage in Berlin on October 11. I would be grateful to Rachel if you could also circulate the information. Maybe some people watching the video will be in Berlin on October. The second venue in Hamburg. Further venues under discussion. And we very much hope to be able to show the exhibition in other cities like Leipzig, Munich, Jerusalem. So we're very open for any suggestions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. That was an amazing, very, very rich and compact presentation. And I know there's so much more to say. We have spoken about this so much. And very impressive. And we have a few questions. Please post your questions. So Alan is asking, how did the Zionist Archive get the collection? Like, how did it land in?
There's a chapter in the catalog. Actually, the Zionist Archive got the collection. There was an initiative for creating a private initiative for creating an archive for architects who had participated in the building of Israel. And when this initiative ran into financial difficulty, it transferred its collections to the Central Zionist Archives. And one of the founders of this private initiative, Uriel Adif, actually participated in, I would say, classifying the Klarwein legacy.
Yeah. Do we know, Nina's asking, do we know why he decided to go to Palestine?
No, we don't. Thank you very much for this question, because it is a question that is also, I have no answer. Did he go to Palestine because he wanted to go to Palestine or because there was no other option? Definitely, he had the money to get an immigration visa to Palestine, and he was more or less sure, or he supposed that he would find work in Palestine also, because so many other architects from his university time that he knew from Germany had gone to Palestine. So he had his first connections there, and it was and he received also help from who was it? One architect who was already in Palestine, wrote a letter saying that he would employ Klarwein for 1 year.
Yeah, that's a reason to
Yeah.
have a job lined up. That's a big one.
Yeah.
So Renee is asking, she missed where his training was from. So
His
could you?
training was first in Mainz. It was all in Germany. First in Mainz, the art school. Then Klarwein started to work in architectural offices. In the art school, he already opted for architecture. And in 1916-17, he went to Munich to study with Theodor Fischer. Again, he worked for some time, and then he went to Berlin in 1921 to become one of 5 master students of Hans Pölzig.
Thank you.
But apparently he never passed an architectural diploma.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Did Elke is asking, did his father go to Palestine first or with him, or how did that happen? Did the whole family
It's,
go together?
it seems that his father, his wife, and his son came together.
And so Naomi is asking whether his wife's surname is Kuhne or Kumme
It is Kumme. It is Kumme. The marriage certificate here, her passport, her later passports. I have a scan of her passport from the 1960s when she was she went back to Germany because she forgot all her other languages. She was blind and she forgot all her other languages. And her last passport is all her official papers are in the name of Kumme. But I understand the origin of the question, because in these funny Wikipedia pages that many people refer to and that I was very happy to find at the beginning, the name is spelled Kühne, but her name was Kumme.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. You should change the Wikipedia page.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
We did change it. We partially changed it, but
yeah,
then, as you know, I mean, we're preparing the exhibition
right.
to Hamburg and so on, and that's always, I think, well, it's there, and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But right, yeah, we have to update our website, and we have to change the Wikipedia page.
I
Yeah.
think that's a job for life that you
Yes,
created for
yes, yeah,
yourself.
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. And
I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up later on. I mean, please also put my email in your follow-up mail, the info@klarwein.org. It comes directly into my mailbox. And
very good. Yeah. Did do you know whether he ever reconnected formally to his Jewish roots? Rabbi Rubin is asking.
I don't really know. No. Um, he says, I am a Jew in the affidavit for the reparation claims. Yeah. But he brought Hungarian salami from his travels in Europe to his grandchildren, his step-grand. And I don't think he was a very practicing Jew. Um, his mother, his mother's brother was a rabbi who went to America, Baruch Centuri. But maybe also the second wife of his father was not a practicing Jew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the family picture that you can see in the presentation, and that indicates a secular life to me.
Mm-hmm.
She is not dressed in a traditional way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
bit old-fashioned, but not traditional.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I agree. I would like to go back to Germany because we had this discussion about,
Yes.
uh, if Klarwein is known anywhere, then in Israel because of these monumental buildings and his
Yes.
extreme presence in, especially in Jerusalem. Um, but we spoke a lot about the name recognition in Germany, and we're talking about his working for Fritz Höger as the really the star architect who
Yes.
the whose vision was the one that was built that came out of the office, but why that name is not so well known. Do you want to go a little bit into that?
Yes, yeah, yes, I can say that. It was just not the practice was that the chief, the owner of the architectural bureau, he signed the plans and he officially had all the recognition. It is still like that. I
Hmm.
mean, Copperfield, people, it's the chief, the boss's name that counts. Yeah, in some cases, it is known that Klarwein was the collaborator, and
Hmm.
interestingly enough, the press at the time in the 30s sometimes noted. Uh, that Ossip Klarwein, collaborator, presented the plans, or that the project is from Fritz Höger and Ossip Klarwein. So that's really interesting because apparently at the time his name was there. It was occasionally mentioned. Yeah? And now we have had an absolutely amazing media coverage for this exhibition with more than 20 articles, radio interviews, etc. And the name Klarwein is out in the public now in Germany, probably more so than in Israel.
Hmm. Well, that will
And
come when you bring the exhibition to Israel.
I hope so. I hope so. Yes, yeah, yeah. We are in discussion with the curator of the Knesset
Uh-huh.
and other museums, and yes, I think it makes sense to for the exhibition to go to Israel.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
And also, I mean, I hope that we will gather additional information about Klarwein's life and works.
Right.
Through the exhibition, we identified three more projects that we did not know about
Yeah.
amongst the residents of the second president of Israel.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So Naomi, maybe there is one. Naomi is writing back. Actually, I saw the name of his wife, Kuhne, not on Wikipedia, but on Jenny, where the family site is managed by Balthasar Klarwein. So it's a
Oh no, then I will have to talk to Balthasar. Yeah, I know Balthasar. We had wonderful meetings. He came to see me in Berlin and so on, but he did not do any research into the family history, and I will ask him to update this. Yeah, yeah.
okay. Okay.
I think he took it from Wikipedia.
Yeah, interesting. So
Yeah.
it's good to talk, to have these conversations.
Yeah. It's very useful, very helpful. Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Naomi.
Yeah. And we should also mention that there's a connection to Benno Elkan, who built the menorah that is on
Right.
the opposite
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And we have featured him and his work, his sculptures, and he's also from Germany and refugee really who came to Palestine
Yes.
and to
Yes.
Israel.
Yes.
No, he
It's
didn't
remarkable.
come there actually. He went to London and stayed there. So, but he built the menorah. So, do you want to say something about that?
Yes. Well, we found out about this by one of the authors, Doron Bar, one of the authors of the catalog. I have to say, all the authors were absolutely fantastic in their. It was a project that we built together, and we regularly received informations here. Did you see this? Did you note that? And the other day, Doron was working in the Jerusalem City Archives, and he came across a letter indicating that Klarwein had built the socle, or how do you call it, the base, designed the base for the menorah. And when you look at it, I mean, it's nothing very decorative, but it is so typical of Klarwein in the simplicity and the modesty. He does not try to overwhelm, to be more important than a menorah. And
Mhm.
that is very Klarwein, I would say.
Mhm. Yeah. Did he know Erich Mendelssohn while they were in Palestine?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It is not excluded. I have heard, but no proof, that Klarwein was not very happy with the way that Mendelssohn got his commissions, because Mendelssohn did not he did not participate in competitions. No? And so that is what, but it's only hearsay from people who knew Klarwein, and Klarwein adapted the Villa Schocken to become the Rubin Academy of Music, and the one of the academic advisors of our project, Johannes Kramer, he thinks it was not such a good idea. He preferred the Mendelssohn building, and other contemporaries of Klarwein thought that this was the greatest work that he did. So go and have a look. Yeah,
There are two camps.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So Alke is asking, did he work with Marc Chagall on the Hadassah Hospital Chapel?
I don't know that. I know that Chagall and Klarwein knew each other personally.
Hmm.
Klarwein went to see Chagall in southern France. His son spent time not only in Paris but also in Saint-Tropez. And together they went to see Chagall. And I think Chagall was not Klarwein's choice for the interior decoration of the Knesset.
Hmm.
And other than that, I do not know whether they cooperated.
Yeah. Yeah. Jenny says, fantastic presentation, which I
Well,
think is
thank you, Jenny.
exciting too. I worked for Hadassah and recalled the name Klarwein from the archives, but I knew nothing of him. It was wonderful to learn more about him as a complex, multifaceted individual. And
Well,
yeah, and then Nina says, wishes you much success. So thank you,
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you so very, very much for opening our eyes about Klarwein. And I wish you many more discoveries on your further travels, Klarwein travels. Thank you
Wish
so
us
much.
clarity, more clarity. There are still many open questions, and I would really be delighted to see more information coming up and more research going on about Klarwein.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Rachel. Thank you.
Take good care, everyone. Be well.